My name is Ankon Mitra. I'm an architect by profession, but my passion is origami, and I'm here to talk about the many dimensions of origami today. So most of us, when you think of origami, you're thinking about flapping birds and cranes and things like that. This is like an iconic image. It's a crane, and most Japanese kids hold this as kids. Yeah. And everybody in Japan is familiar with this. But here in India, we are more familiar with paper planes, right? As kids, or even probably as college students, you've thrown paper planes at someone at least once in your life. And as kids, we all used to make boats, right? So, kagas ki kashti and stuff like that. So, now let's start looking at this instead of as a boat, as a geometric form, right? So let's abstract it and look at it as a form which has an inherent geometry in it. And this, a tippy tap. Most of us would have played tippy tap as kids. Now let's look at the boat again, and then look at it as a geometric form, right? As a module. So you combine a lot of these and you start getting some sort of a larger geometry out of it. You put a light inside it, you get a beautiful object. But this is not a beautiful object only, this is also a platonic solid. It is a real solid geometry concept. And this tippy tap, if you combine a lot of modules of this, again you get a very complex object. So what can you do? So origami, what can you do with origami? And usually you start with a square sheet of paper, and you could say, okay, maybe I fold it in half and I fold it again, and maybe I get some kind of form or something. So I'll just show you 3-4 examples of what you could do with a square sheet of paper. So this too is a square sheet of paper. You have a larger version of this down here. Yeah, this is a square sheet of paper. This pyramid too is a square sheet of paper. This spiral form here is also a square sheet of paper. What about this form? This too is a square sheet of paper, right? So there are hundreds of things, thousands of things. You start with a square sheet of paper and you can go in any direction as far as geometry is concerned. Now what if someone told you you have to make a cube? You can't use a pair of scissors, you can't use a blade, you can't use glue. How will you make a cube? And on top of that, they say that the cube must also have holes in it. Yeah? How do you do it? No glue, no scissors, no cutter. You can do it by just using square sheets of paper. Many modules of it, 12 in this case, and you can get a cube made with no glue and no scissors. What if you had to make a larger form using the cubes? Again, no glue. Combine them, loop them. You can even close it so that it becomes a ring. So the possibilities are sort of endless, and here I'm talking about this simplest three-dimensional geometry, which is a cube. So I've established that geometry has a deep linkage to origami. So it's one of the most commonplace things that any school or college could use as a tool to teach higher geometry, to teach solid geometry, and to engage students by just giving them a sheet of paper and then giving them concepts and let them fold. My journey started when, as an architect, I was asked to create a very large roof span, and somebody said, you can't put a pillar in the middle of the space. It was an airport hangar. And I started thinking that there are a lot of airport hangars, and usually they are very thick in terms of their structural systems. So what do you do? And I started folding paper. And from paper, the journey went to nature. And I understood that a lot of this folding actually happens in nature. We learn from nature. Origami is biomimicry. A beautiful example here, in cold climate countries, leaves don't grow. They are full-sized because the plant system just doesn't have the kind of energy to grow in the way that a hot, humid climate plant would give to the leaf. So what happens is that you fold the entire leaf, put it inside a bud, and when spring comes, a chemical signal reaches the leaf and the sap starts pumping into the veins, and the veins are exactly where the folds are. So the veins pump up and the leaf unfurls. Magic. Let me show you something which is another kind of magic. You have a form like this, you say, okay, it is a cylinder. This learns from nature as well. It's multidimensional. And then what you do is, you start putting a little bit of pressure on it. It forms a toroid. Then it forms a disc. Then you flatten it, right? And go back to making a cylinder again. It is magic. And it is so common, you can Google magic ball on YouTube and you will get a tutorial how to make this. Make it for yourself. And what I call this is degrees of freedom. So you need forms where you need flexibility, where you need a form to do many things, and you can resort to geometries like this, and they give you the opportunity to do many things with one thing. And then start looking at nature all around you. Look into a cabbage, cut it, look inside it. Look at the next mountain chain when you visit the hills. In Google Earth, look at the coastlines of countries. And if you peer into a microscope and look at the protein sequence, all folding. It's all folding, it's all sequential folding, it's all biomimicry, it's all origami. And then look at dynamic origami. This is dynamic origami. Birds' wings are dynamic origami. It's folding in a very strict geometric sequence, and that's what leads to dynamism. Origami, once you learn it from nature, you start seeing things around you. You start taking it beyond the material of paper. You start looking at plastics. You start looking at metal. Yes, you can fold metal. you start looking at ceramics, at fabric, and then you start looking at scale. And that's where my talk is heading to, because I'm an architect. So you can, of course, create nice things, funny things, which are beautiful things. They don't have purpose, as it were, but they do give life to spaces around you. And you can do it with all the materials I talked about, and of course you can do it with paper as well. You can animate spaces with paper objects. And now I come to the crux of my talk, which is that what do you get out of origami? You can create lighting, you can create furniture, ceramics, tableware, packaging, product design. Product design is an upcoming fantastic field in India. Look at modularity of origami when you're seeing product design. Think about a planter that is small, when the plant is small, and that can expand and take more earth as the plant grows. You can do that with origamic forms. You can have a CD that goes in your CD tray. You can take it out and it becomes, you can fold it, it becomes a mouse. You just need to put a little optical reader into your slot and it is a functioning mouse, so you don't have to carry a separate mouse with you. You can make a foldable chassis of a car by using an origami concept. These are some examples of students who are experimenting with origami from all over the world, but there are hundreds of examples like this if you start looking for them. Now I come to the gist of my talk, which is about architecture. Reimagine the door. Yeah? Just two folds, and there is a pivot joint, and a wonderful experiment by Clemens Togler. More mundane things, a staircase. You don't need hundreds of structural things in the staircase. You need one sheet of metal. You can fold it. It becomes your staircase. And then you look at examples of architecture, and you look at structural performance, how you can get large spans with very thin shells. An ugly duct in Bishop's Court in Paternoster Square converted into a beautiful sculpture. So it functions as a vent for the basement, but it's also a sculpture enlivening the space. A facade which protects you from the glare of the sun. I think let it be. It's fine.
Started looking at something that could be more three-dimensional, offer more flexibility, offer more geometrical shapes that could adjust to the movement of the sun.
The solution was inspired by another traditional art, origami. These computer-controlled three-dimensional triangular screens respond directly to the sun's movement, unfolding like an umbrella when the sunlight hits them. That's what makes these buildings greener. Solar rays can heat the outside surface of windows up to 90 degrees Celsius, nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit. By shielding the glass from the sun, the screens are reducing solar gain, reducing glare, letting in more diffused natural light into the building, saving energy by requiring less artificial lighting and
what if instead of protecting buildings from sun, you wanted to harness more of the solar energy? Traditional photovoltaic cells will not work because they are stationary or it's expensive to move them around as the sun moves. What about the kirigami cells? Maybe they become curved in form, and experiments are already on way so that your solar panel is always facing the sun. So you maximize the use of the photovoltaic, and from an efficiency of 30% bring it up to 70%, 80%, and all using origami, kirigami. And NASA scientists are working with Brigham Young University to even compact things up using origami
we can get a much
and
larger
deploy
array into space
these solar
by storing
panels
it compactly
in
during
space.
launch and opening it up once we're in space.
So you have limited space in a
Spacecraft
shuttle that's
is
going
a
up, right?
rocket, like an Atlas V rocket,
Pack
and
it,
the
fold
solar
it,
array would
put
wrap
it
around
inside the
outside
shuttle,
spacecraft.
and it
And
folds
also
out
that
in all its
compact
glory.
and
100
launched
meters,
into space.
150 meters out in space. And now let's come back to things which are closer to us. Disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, and you need disaster relief very quickly. You need shelters, you need housing, and you need to erect this with massive speed. And you need thousands of these modules to come up. And origami again offers a solution. Pack these modules up, put them in a truck. You just need to create a brick base, unravel them, and they give you shelter. So another realm in which origami plays magic, almost magic. And what is all this leading me to talk about? That origami is almost like a node. Biologists come to it for reference, astrophysicists come to it for reference, computer scientists, engineers, architects, designers. My dream is that there should be, in the near future, in our country, an institute of making, where all these people can come and think about ideas. It is an origami university. It can give to all these disciplines. It is a field which is meditative, it's spiritual. You meditate when you fold. That's what I end up doing when I am folding. But at the same time, it holds the key to many problems and many challenges in many disciplines. So think hard about origami and give it a chance in your lives. Thank you.